The South Australian Education Department has a priority of improving the learning engagement and outcomes for our Aboriginal students. One way in which we've done that was the establishment of the STEM Aboriginal Student Congress, which is a co-design experience between our Aboriginal students across the state with Aboriginal mathematicians, educators, scientists, culminating in a two-day learning event each year with our last one with over 1,000 participants. The key to the success of this program has been the partnership and the co-design work. One of the challenges of that was, I guess initially, helping teachers understand that kids were quite capable of designing, considering what it was that other Aboriginal students were interested in learning about, and designing, presenting, promulgating, communicating the entire project. The engagement and the interest of our Aboriginal students in STEM-related subjects has definitely increased. Here's some video to tell you a little bit more about the Congress itself.
The main thing that's unique about this Congress is that the students are designing it for themselves. Basically, the Congress is a group of Aboriginal kids across South Australia. I'm thinking of it maths and science in terms of them as Aboriginal kids through their own cultural lens.
YASTA, which stands for Young Aboriginal STEM Thinkers of South Australia, have been planning all these workshops throughout the past 2 terms, all in the lead up of tomorrow at the Congress.
So one thing that I really found interesting about this Congress is what the activities some of the students have come up with. They're actually drawing on their own knowledge, their own cultural knowledge, creating an activity for other Aboriginal kids through the Aboriginal lens.
So we turned one of our dances into a maths equation.
Dance and song are one of the cultural ways that we educated through our societies.
I'm going to present an activity on 4D toys, which is 4-dimensional toys. Also link that with our Aboriginal culture as well, with the rainbow serpent and fractal properties, the repeating patterns of things with our Aboriginal paintings.
Fundamentally, maths and science is just a way of explaining the world around us. And Aboriginal people have been doing that for 40,000 years in this country. So we have a lot to offer.
I think everyone, is still buzzing from last year. The Congress in 2017 was a really inspiring event. It's going to be a very good experience to take what we did last year and really build that and make it even better.
Today is all about us looking back on last year's Congress, seeing what we did well, seeing what we did not so well, and building up towards this year and making this year better.
The numbers are huge. When I looked at this and I saw, there were over 200 kids being involved in this, I was like, that's huge. There is nothing like this happening in Australia.
STEM isn't something that you immediately think of when it comes to achieving as an Indigenous student, but now it is.
The activity that I'm doing, we're going to be retelling the Thukari story from the Nurrunjeri people. So we're using VR art to sort of recreate it and reimagine it.
This year we're planning on looking at the aerodynamics of either a spear or a boomerang.
I love being a leader to other people who aren't so strong-voiced and don't really have the courage to talk out. I love to be the voice for the people who aren't heard.
Indigenous astronomy is a field that has been researched for a few years now. The more that it's researched, the more that's coming out, how much knowledge is within Indigenous culture. That definitely applies to lots of other places.
There's a growing recognition of Aboriginal knowledges within these fields. In terms of education, I'd really like to see our kids engaged in that understanding of why is it that Aboriginal people sustained a culture for 40,000 years in this continent. We were here, we lived, we thrived.
Like the Congress is appealing to a group of people that are connected by their heritage. It's approached in a way that is acknowledged, and not only is it acknowledged, it's celebrated.
These students that are coming to create this Congress are lead thinkers. They're doing something special, something different that is actually changing the lives of other students in South Australia.
Welcome to the 2019 STEM Aboriginal Student Congress.
Proudly brought to you by us,
the young Aboriginal STEM thinkers of South Australia.
This Congress is about you.
Being powerful learners and lead thinkers.
This Congress is about knowledge. Exploring traditional knowledge in a STEM future.
Our theme for this year is Living Two Worlds.
Think deeply.
And enjoy our Congress.
We're getting people from the previous years to come back to tell their schools, to tell their families. Yes, culture and maths, science, engineering, mathematics are all linked together.
To me, it means that they trust us to share the knowledge, and they trust us that we're responsible enough to take the Congress into our own hands. Taking that bigger responsibility on becoming one of the leaders instead of a support.
An ongoing challenge for the Congress will be how to increasingly have our students take back their learning to their schools and scale that work up across the community. So far we've grown from 80 participants to 200 to over 1,000, and in 2021 we're hoping that it's even more. But the challenge of scaling up the engagement and keeping that a strong personal connection to Aboriginal communities and students across the state, that will remain our challenge. But thus far, the partnership with students and having them as the agents, the designers and the deliverers of the learning has been an incredibly successful strategy.